Hi, Dawn Lewis here. Welcome to day 3 of this Sketch and Scraps series. All of this week I'll be using Fuzzy Felines by Hello Sweetums, and we're going to start with card 1. I'll explain my theory behind today's projects. Today I wanted to work with single layer cards, at least as a starting off point. So for the first card, I'm actually stamping on a front panel that is blue cardstock. I'm double stamping because it's textured cardstock and sometimes the ink just doesn't show up really well. So for this one I wanted to do tone on tone, a watermark effect. So I am stamping with the Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Ink clear embossing ink. So you could use Versamark, what's the other ones? Perfect Medium, whatever your favorite clear embossing ink is, you can use that here. Now, I've just stamped directly onto the cardstock so that it makes a tone-on-tone watermark. However, you could add clear embossing powder and give them a glossy finish, which would look really nice. I have a coloured pouncing kitty here and I'm working around that because I want this kitty to be part of my design, and I'm using the Tim Holtz travel stamp platform today. I like this one because it's open on two sides. It's open to the left and it's open underneath, so if I wanted to use a large piece of cardstock I can do that. So I do enjoy this particular tool. It's a lovely one. Now I'm stamping the kitties, I'm stamping accessories, and you can see where it's just creating a tone on tone. This is the first time I've used the Distress Ink clear embossing ink for watermark alone, and I've got to say it actually faded, and so in the photos it is hard to see, and in real life it is a little hard to see. So in hindsight I probably would have used Versamark, but you know, it's still a great card. So I've added my kitty, I've added my sentiment, and now I can just pop this onto the front of a card base. Today I'm using top folding card bases, and I've used a corner rounding punch on the bottom two corners, so you'll see that they're rounded. Here's a comparison to my standard card from yesterday's video. You can see instead of pattern paper we've stamped the watermark. The natural stopping line is in place of the contrast strip. My hero image is moved to the left and my sentiment is in the same place. Let's look at card 2 and see how we can mix this up a little bit. I'm going to do all over stamping again, and you'll see I've just put a few images at the bottom and I'm stamping with my darkest ink. I'm using 3 Purple Hero Arts dye inks today, and I'm just putting the darkest color at the bottom, and now I'm placing down a few more stamps and images to, you know, continue my pattern, and I'm stamping those with a slightly lighter shade of purple. It's a different shade of purple, and this is going to give us an ombre effect, but it's all one layer. On the third layer, I'm stamping with my palest color, and this way we've got, you can see the natural ombre effect. I'm adding a colored sleeping kitty and my sentiment, and I played with that a little, I'll be honest. In comparing it, you can see our ombre stamping takes the place of the pattern paper. The natural stopping line is the contrast strip. Our hero image has been moved to the left. Our sentiment is still there, but it's been moved upwards into the right corner. So this is another play on the sketch. It doesn't look strictly like the sketch, however it is inspired by our sketch. Moving on to card number 3, and we're going to mix this up yet again. So here I have my card base. I'm stamping directly on it and I'm starting with the sentiment. I like using Ranger Archival Jet Black ink for sentiments. It's just so dark and crisp. I've also stamped onto a piece of Post-it note. So that is acting as a mask so that I can stamp around my sentiment and not get anything over the top. I've also placed a pre-colored pouncing kitty on the left there to work around that as well. And for my all over stamp background, we are going rainbow. You might have guessed it when I pulled out all of these rainbow little mini ink cubes, but yes, we're going rainbow. So I'm just choosing pieces and stamping them. I'm trying to kind of work in color rainbow order, but you know, it's rainbow. It's just pretty. It really doesn't matter. And you can move bits and pieces around. You know, I've moved the pouncing kitty, and here you can see my rainbow stamping takes the place of the pattern paper. The natural stopping line takes the place of the contrast. My sentiment is still there. It's just all in one, and my hero image is still there, but it has been absorbed into and made part of that all over stamped image. Card number 4. This one I had fun with, and it was so quick. I'm going to use a kitty and an accessory for this one, and I wanted to bring in that pop of blue. First though, stamping the image, and I'm going to use the same mask to mask it, and there's a reason I'm masking this one. As I stamp the same kitty image in a neutral tone, I'm going to go over the top of the mask. I'm also turning this kitty stamp around, so it's a little bit more random, like you'd find on a piece of pattern paper. All the same color ink. I did have to restamp just a little at the top. I did a miss stamp, which is why stamping tools are great. But this one, it's a fairly pale neutral tone, so it wasn't a big deal. I'm also stamping with the little paw print stamp just to fill in some spaces between the kitties, and I think this one came out really, really well. So the next job I have to do is to peel up my mask, and you can see now I've created a mat by using the mask. I'm adding my stamped images, and you can see my all over monotone stamp is the pattern paper, the natural stopping line is the contrast strip, the kitty has been moved to the left, and the sentiment is still essentially in the same place, and instead of being matted, it has been masked to give a hard line around the outside of the sentiment. Now we are moving on to card number 5. This one I had fun with, and I made some mistakes. I've left them in to show you what happens in a 1-layer card when you make a mistake. This wasn't the mistake though. I deliberately stamped just this one kitty in black, but everything else is going to be hot pink. Oh, this card is so glorious. I even know exactly which friend I have in mind for this because she's a big fan of pink. So I did move the card to stamp the sentiment, and I'll be honest, I did not do a good job when I stamped that sentiment. I've added a little paw print to it, and then I'm so sorry, I forgot to move the card back up into frame. But all I'm doing is what I did in the last couple of cards, picking out an image, inking it up with the pink, stamping it randomly around my piece. I will move it up in a moment, I promise. You can see a little bit more of the stamping. It's almost like a surprise. But I want to show you what I did to cover up that sentiment. This is one of the reasons I don't stamp sentiments directly onto my card. I prefer to add it as a sentiment strip, is because sometimes I mess it up. So what I did was, on a separate piece of white cardstock, I stamped my sentiment in black ink. I matted it on a scrap of pink cardstock. Would you believe this was also on my desk? And then I can now place this over the top of the messed up sentiment. Look, you wouldn't know. The pink stamping takes the place of the pattern paper. The black cat takes the place of the hero cat. The natural stopping line is the contrast strip. The sentiment has been moved up and to the left. And this was a great starting point. Even though it didn't come out the way I intended it to, it was a great way to start. So don't be afraid of sketches. They are the perfect way to just get moving, get a card going. And if it changes along the way, so be it. There's no rules when it comes to sketches. You can do your own thing. And using up scraps and stash, look at this. I hardly even used anything. This is something you can do when you don't even have a lot of stuff. I do hope you are enjoying this series. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want more info, check the description box below. You'll find information over on my blog, as well as a copy of the sketch. I do hope that you have a very crafty day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.